Our grand final is set. Geelong will meet Sydney in next week's decider after the Cats thrashed the Lions and the Swans just held on against the fast-finishing Magpies. Hello and welcome to The Round So Far, brought to you by AAMI. I'm Riley Beveridge. I'm joined, as always, by Kane Cornes. Kane, I've got no idea where you are. Tell us where you are. Tell us how you're feeling.
I'm in stall, Riley, yeah, so day 7 of a 12-day trip. We've covered about 460 kilometres in the 7 days. So, yeah, it's been epic. The support's been incredible. All the money's going towards my room and kids that have been affected by cancer and also their families. So it's been an epic journey, but still a fair bit to go.
We wish you all the best for the rest of your journey. Let's get into the footy and we'll start at the SCG tonight, where the Swans qualified for the grand final, their first since 2016. Geez, they made them work for it though, didn't they, the Magpies?
Yeah, what a game of football. And they made them work for it, you're right, as they have done to every team this year. You have to play 4 quarters against them. Sydney had the game completely in their control. They jumped out of the blocks, which we'll get to in a minute, but felt they played safe in the last quarter. It was like this wave of momentum that they couldn't halt, as has been the case for Collingwood and teams that have lost to them in close games this year. But Sydney, in the end, did enough to hang on, and heartbreaking for Collingwood. But what a season it has been for them, and no doubt their supporters will be pretty proud of what they've achieved.
Sydney led by 36 points midway through the third quarter, but you're right though, they started to tighten towards the end of the game. Collingwood came home like a steam train. They only won by a point in the end.
Yeah, they did. So these are the dying moments, which we'll see here, the crucial last quarter moments. Bianco kicks that one there, and you think, oh, hang on, there's a bit of belief here. Papley takes this mark against 2 Collingwood defenders. They had to defend that better. There'll be some talk about a push in the back. I didn't see that. Darcy Moore's just got to defend Tom Papley better than that, and Quaino's got to come over the top and spoil that. So I didn't think there was an issue with that. Tom Papley was enormous and Sydney's best player. Mychek takes this mark once again. Was it a mark? Probably not. I think the umpire was a bit generous. So there's a couple of calls either way that could have gone one way or the other. So I think that evened it out in the end. But here they come, Riley. Take us through this.
Well, Will Hoskin-Elliott snaps this one, and this is when you start to think, geez, we've seen Collingwood do this before. We saw it in round 23 when they were 28 points down at three-quarter time, 24 points down tonight. Still Sidebottom puts through another, and you think it's just about all Collingwood at this stage. Buddy Franklin, I thought he was really good throughout the whole night. He kicked 2 goals, set up a few more early, but he takes that really strong mark to just about ice the game. And we say just about because from there, the Swans kicked it down the line to a stoppage. Collingwood rebounded. I want to take you through this last possession, though, because Collingwood forced the ball deep inside their forward 50. They were 2 points down. They needed to go through for a goal. Is there anything they could have done here, do you think, to force it through?
Oh, no, well, I'm not sure. Well, they did it pretty well. I mean, both teams were incredible, really. It's the luck of the bounce of the ball, and Sydney did an incredible job to rush it through. I'm not sure there's anything either side could have done differently. It was a bit of luck in the end there. I was thinking there perhaps could have been a nervous play that would give a Collingwood player a free kick and have a shot at goal after the siren. That would have been a dramatic finish, but in the end, Sydney probably defended that pretty well.
Sydney dominated the game early, and a man at the heart of that was Tom Papley. He is our Saturday star, thanks to Taylor Made. He kicked 3 goals from 16 disposals, 5 marks, 5 score involvements, 7 inside 50s, and he got stuck into them early, which set the tempo for the Swans.
I just love this. I love it. I thought it was a really physical game from both teams. I mean, Sydney weren't afraid to get in the face of the opposition. We saw Franklin do that, but this guy's just had an enormous year. He's probably their most important player now because of the versatility he provides. We know how important centre bounce is at the SCG. He went in there, he started the game in there, but then his ability to do this, we saw the contested mark against 2 Collingwood players. He then gets it on the ground like that there is just, I mean, that's pretty smart for a player who's 177 centimetres. Like, incredible. He's tough, and he's the energy that Sydney needed, and he brought it right from the start. So, I mean, he's a player that loves the big stage and could well be a Norm Smith medalist next week. He's got that sort of aura about him. So they'll challenge Geelong. A few of their small forwards. Hayward's a really good player. They've got some good young leg speed. Warner can burst out of stoppage. So I think it's a compelling grand final, and I reckon it's going to be an absolute ripper.
Sydney's start was ultimately what won them the game. They led 26-0 after just 14 minutes of game time. They kicked 6 goals from turnover in the first quarter as well. They were all over them early.
And they were inaccurate as well. Like, so they had their opportunities, but it felt like every time they went inside 50, they were scoring. Collingwood's defence was all at sea. I just really wasn't sure about the Maynard on Franklin matchup, and he was exposed there. Dylan Stevens drifted down from the wing there and kicked that goal. So they do have a lot of powerful runners, and their midfielders can go forward and score. There's the Clarksman, Ryan Clark. He did a great job on Nick Dacos again until they moved Dacos forward in the last quarter. And then this is what you love about Sydney. This is the pressure that they brought that Collingwood couldn't cope with last time in the home and away fixture. They brought it again, and Collingwood were a bit rattled. So Sydney started the game, full of this aggression, toughness and pressure. And they got a bit lucky with goals like this. But it was an incredible start, and it's amazing that Collingwood were able to get themselves back in this game.
We mentioned that when Collingwood came back into it, it was because their backline started to get on top, and that had something to do with the fact that Sam Reid was subbed out of this game with an adductor injury, a worry for them heading into the grand final next week. Their options, Hayden McLean was an emergency tonight. He hasn't played since round 8, though. We know Peter Adams is suspended for that incident in the VFL. Is Joel Amadi an option, or do they go a bit smaller if Sam Reid doesn't get up, do you reckon?
I'm not exactly sure what the answer is, but what I do know is if he doesn't play, it's a huge blow because he's been enormous. I mean, since about round 11, when he came in, he's just been huge for them. Logan McDonald's not going great. Franklin was solid tonight, but it hasn't been going great either. Reid's been the one for me, so he would be able to keep Henry and Tom Stewart and players like that for Geelong accountable. We know how good they are intercepting the ball. So if he isn't there, it's a massive blow to Sydney's structure and also their chances next week.
Just want to touch on Collingwood. From 17th to a prelim this year. Yeah, it didn't go their way in finals. They were 9-1 in games decided by 7 points or less during the home and away season. They were 0-2 in finals, but they're on the right track. They'll bring in Dan McStay, Bobby Hill, Billy Frampton. They're going to be good again next year, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't think any of those three inclusions help, actually. Billy Frampton's a player who's been on a list for a long, long time and couldn't get a game at Adelaide, so I'm not sure how he's going to get a game at Collingwood. Dan McStay, we saw how poor he was in the final, so if they're going to play him as a forward, I'm not sure about that move. So maybe this was their opportunity, and I've loved every bit of their season. I think it's been incredible, but just because you lose a close prelim final doesn't mean you're guaranteed to go the next step next year. So I still think they've got some holes in their list. They don't have a key forward on their list, and that is an issue for them, and I thought we saw that tonight. So I don't think it's just guaranteed that Collingwood improve and play off in a grand final next year. I think they've possibly overachieved this year.
All right, we'll head to our AAMI clangers now, and we'll start at the MCG on Friday night, where the umpire was changing his microphone and got stuck halfway through and had to come out. There was... coming up here, as you
they couldn't get the equipment. Yeah, they couldn't get the equipment off the ground, so they had to delay the start for the second quarter, and the players are going, what's going on here? Richo gets TJ'd, so Tom Hawkins gets TJ'd. He wants the high five there at half-time. Incredible of Tom Hawkins, who was inaccurate in the first half, to give his time to Channel 7. It didn't affect him because he finished with 4 goals. Funny moment there. And what's Braden Maynard doing here?
Just trying to rub some of the oil off Lance Franklin's arms. I'm not sure what he was trying to do there. All right, we will go now to the MCG on Friday night, where Geelong thrashed Brisbane to book its place in the grand final. This one was set up by Patrick Dangerfield and his brilliance, particularly early in the game.
Yeah, it's a lesson why you don't start Dangerfield and Selwood on the bench, which was the case in the qualifying final against Collingwood. That was probably Chris Scott's first mistake he's made this year. This is why you start Patrick Dangerfield on the ground first up. He went back, kicked that first goal. He was easily the best player on the ground. 8 possessions, couple of goals in the first quarter, finished with 28. And huge metres gain. I think it was 720 metres gain. So the decision to give him a pre-season mid-year when he was struggling to overcome those calf injuries, and I thought he was carrying a bit of extra weight. He's not looking like that now. That was just brilliant management from a coach and an experienced football club that had hardly put a foot wrong. So the way they've managed their list this year, they've rested all the players that have needed to be rested throughout the season, and then they get to a point now where you're absolutely running on top of the ground. Dangerfield hasn't moved like this all year. So to manage him to this point right now, Hawkins is another one, and Cameron as well, that hamstring injury. They just got them going at the right time. And what they have included, which we're about to show here, is players who can just run up and down the ground all day long. That's been a big improvement for Geelong this year.
On the flip side, Lachie Neale was a star early. He won the first 2 clearances of the game, but then he was held to just 20 touches. How did you see the way Geelong managed him? Because it was sort of a team approach to tackling him.
As good as I've seen. I just loved it. So what they did, they took the energy out of him. So they bashed him. But really, has anyone gone after him, bashed Lachie Neale this year? No. So that sort of stuff, that's taxing, that's tiring. When you've got Atkins coming to you, then you get another fresh player. So now it's Selwood, then it would be Blixar. So Lachie Neale's going, oh, hang on, am I ever going to get a rest? Is someone ever going to let me stand alone at stoppage? And then you get Selwood doing that and Atkins bashing him again. So at every stop play, didn't matter which Geelong player, whoever was standing next to Lachie Neale, just absolutely put so much physical work into him that he was exhausted and didn't have any offensive drive or run and had one of his poorest games for the year. So once again, coaching masterclass from Chris Scott, who absolutely taught Chris Fagan, who was coaching from the interchange bench, a lesson on Friday night.
You mentioned the two-way running aspect. It was so noticeable at the ground that Geelong was just running on water. Basically, it looked like they were all over them. And Brisbane's defensive running has been an issue for them throughout the year, and it wasn't great again on Friday night. I want to highlight this bit of vision from behind the goals. Now, that's Tyson Stengel up against his opponent. He ends up kicking the goal, so that's how much he puts on his man. And that's Cam Guthrie, who we highlight there. That's how much space overall. He gets the kick inside 50, but that's how much space he puts on his man as well.
They can all run now. So their wings, a lot of their midfielders and their high half forwards, Brian Myers, we've spoken about Holmes, Stengel, they can all run and get up and down the ground. Isaac Smith is another one. So personnel-wise, they've identified that, yeah, maybe we had a few too many plotters through the midfield, and you don't have to be an A-grade player, but you have to be able to run up and down the ground offensively and defensively. Their defensive work on Friday night and how they restricted Brisbane and on the other side scored off their turnovers was incredible, and that's largely the way that they've pieced this list together.
Where to for the Lions now, do you think? They're well in the mix, as we've reported on afl.com.au, for Josh Dunkley. There's been links to Buddy Franklin, who will play in the grand final next year. We know they're going to lose Dan McStay, and Darcy Gardner, restricted free agent, is still uncontracted. Can they go again next year?
I think their list is pretty good. I'm not sure about their game plan and their footy IQ with what they've got in the coaching structure there, because the amount of times they just played into Geelong's hands. I mean, as I said, Chris Scott taught Chris Fagan a lesson. I know it's more than that. I know it's the collective, but how many times did they just play exactly the way that Geelong wanted them to do it? And the Stanley move of starting in the ruck but going behind the ball, and Blixar's coming in, rabbit in headlight stuff. It took them a fair bit of time to work that out. So I think their personnel is okay. I'd be a little bit concerned about Hipwood and Danaher. They seem to often go missing in big games, as was the case. McStave's leaving, but I don't think that's a loss at all. So if you can just bolster a few pieces, Dunkley will help. I think they've got the cattle there, but do they have a game plan that's going to stack up? And are they defensively sound enough? Probably not, and we saw that on Friday night.
They will, of course, get Will Ashcroft as well, father-son prospect, who's potentially the #1 pick at this year's draft. An injury worry for Geelong as well. Max Holmes substituted out of this game with a hamstring injury. If he doesn't get up, what do you reckon they turn to? Mark O'Connor, Menegola, Parfitt. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, well, I think O'Connor would come in. That would be the next man up. Menegola, I know they've got a lot of time for, and he's been incredibly unlucky to miss, but has had an interrupted season. So one of those two you would think, but Chris Scott was pretty bullish after the game that he's going to play.
They're optimistic about it. So it's like an injury that's absolutely going to rule him out. They haven't given me the detail yet, except that they're optimistic that he'll play. So it didn't look like that to me. So that made a good night better. Yeah, when the guys I'm talking about, the quality of our medical staff, when they say they're optimistic, then it gets me up on my toes.
So that is more good news for Geelong, who, of course, are looking to become just the 8th side in the last 22 years to cash a minor premiership into an actual premiership. You're part of one of those teams, Kane, 2004. Can you remember much about that? How hard is it?
Yeah, well, they've won 15 in a row. So, I mean, they're the form team coming into the finals. They've been the best team all year. They're playing at the MCG. So they will start red-hot favourites. So I just get the feeling that Sydney have a bit of personnel that may trouble them with their leg speed and with their youth and the amount of match winners that Sydney have in their side. So, look, I would be favouring Geelong. As I said, they've been the best team all year. They've got the best coach in the competition, and you would back them in. But I think we're going to get a pretty good game. It's exciting.
The finals to come now, of course. There is just one game left in the year. It is Geelong against Sydney next Saturday at the MCG. It's going to be an absolute cracker. I reckon, though, Kane, if there's one side that's going to be able to test the Cats, it is the Swans. I just wonder, though, if they get an advantage, they put themselves in an advantage, they can't tighten up like they did on Saturday night.
They've been a pretty good last quarter team all year, really, Sydney. So it was strange that happened tonight. So, yeah, let's just hope we get a really physical contest. I love the fact that both teams will try and intimidate the other one physically and verbally. We saw a bit of that in both games. Geelong went after Hipwood, and we saw what Papley did and others tonight. So it makes for a mouth-watering matchup, and, yeah, we all can't wait for it.
Now, one more thing now, Kane. We, of course, are on screen a lot of the time on this show, but a lot of the people off the screen do most of the hard work. Just a quick shout out to a few here on the round so far. Paul Baston, who's our incredible producer. Lockie Rand, who does a bit of everything. Anthony Boetti, who cuts all the clips. Chris Doyle, Greg Cornell, Amy Rockman. My good friend Jace, who's just over here behind the camera as well. Thank you to our entire team, because the show wouldn't go ahead without you. And thank you, Kane, for all of your work throughout the season. You've done an incredible job. You're doing a remarkable thing, as we've spoken about already tonight. And good luck for the remaining few days you've got. Hopefully you enjoy the game next Saturday.
Yeah, just echo your sentiments as well. Though. They all stay up so late on a Saturday night to put this show together. So incredible team behind the scenes. Well done to you, your first year of hosting. You've been absolutely flawless, mate. So enjoy the off-season and might see you next year.
Appreciate it, mate. Cheers.